Hi, everyone. Welcome inside the Fargo Dome for the Bison postgame show presented by Gate City Bank. I'm Logan Campbell, Jeff Kolpack, Eric Peterson, Kyle Emanuel back with us.
Remembered
your name
Good
this
start.
time.
Yeah,
Good start to the
having me.
show.
We're taking a hit in athletic ability without McFeely here, but let's go.
All right, let's do this. It was a must-win game for the Bison today. They were able to get it done as they beat North Dakota State beat Southern Illinois 34-10. So, like we said, this was a must-win. They got to the coveted 7. It was close in the first half, though, Jeff.
Well, it was, and I expected a low-scoring game. And, you know, those special teams miscues, we've seen it a lot this year. Came back to bite them with that fumble that turned into a field goal at the end, that Jaden Price fumble. And then Eli Green fumbled on a kickoff. Rajah Nelson, Eli Green owes Rajah Nelson like a dinner because Rajah
might have been the play of the game.
That could have been a huge play.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, Matt Entz said in the post game about complimentary football. The muff punt by Jaden Price, short field, 45 yards. NDSU allows a field goal there as opposed to a touchdown where they're trailing at half. And then I think what we saw today was when NDSU needed a big play, they got it, whether it was holding SIU to a field goal, whether it was a 52-yard over-the-shoulder Braylon Henderson catch on a 3rd and forever. Eli Green looked like he had about a 50-inch vertical on another 3rd and long. Those are the plays that NDSU wasn't making, like a 3rd and long where you don't think you should be able to get a first down extended drive. NDSU was able to make those type of plays to go along with the way
winning
they ran.
plays.
Yeah, winning plays to go along with the way they ran the ball.
NDSU scored 21 unanswered points in this second half. Kyle, what do you think sparked this offense?
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to what Eric said, you talk about, the momentum shift there at the end of the first half. I think it would have been really easy for NDSU to go into halftime and focus on the negatives and everything that went wrong there at the end. I mean, they had a chance to, take a big lead there, and I thought the response, right, the adjustments, and it really came down to, honestly, it was the defense. Like, the offense sputtered at times in that second half, but the defense just kept giving the ball right back. I mean, this was the most complete game we've seen from NDSU, specifically that second half, and this is what you've been waiting to see, right, all season long, especially since that non-conference. You just haven't seen that complete game, and they put it together today, and they did it against a really good opponent.
And said in the post-game press conference that second half was the most complete that the Bison have played so far this season.
And to Kyle's point, you put it all together. The defense holding Southern Illinois to a field goal after the miscue on special teams, 3 and out to start the second half instead of Southern Illinois getting points. Then I think that's NDSU's offense followed with its best drive of the second half. You saw the 7 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards of crack on the run game. Now it got a little dicey later, but NDSU ran for 217 yards on a team that was allowing teams 83.3 yards per game. And coming into this game, the most that Southern Illinois allowed on the ground is 167. So it might not have been pretty, and some of it was quarterback run game, but I think we saw those 5-6 yard games where running backs were breaking tackles, getting to 2nd and 6, 3rd and short, and I think that was a huge key. That it wasn't pretty, but it was somewhat effective on the ground today.
Defense played lights out today, but I think offensively the player of the game was Rajah Nelson Kolpack.
Yeah, he was all over the place. He's that Swiss Army guy, that knife that we talked about. I think he's really good in the backfield. I mean, just looked like a regular running back. He got that little seam, made a couple good catches. Just that Ryan Smith from a few years ago, just kind of that kind of an athlete. Offense was good. I think defensively with the defensive line, I thought that was their best game of the season. And Jake Cava after the game in the post-game press conference said, well, Nick Baker, sometimes he was hardly even looking downfield because obviously he's running for his life. 4 quarterback sacks. I thought it was really their best effort of the year.
And on top of that, I think you saw better tackling. In years past, even last year, it'd be 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and SIU tried to get a little tricky with the draw play. NDSU wasn't having that today. There wasn't like 2 or 3 broken tackles and 7-yard run on a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. It just seems like the tackle was more sure. People were aggressive getting to the ball. I mean, I know the game was over. Najee Nelson has another nice play on the ball interception, but it just seemed the front 7 was just more sound up front and didn't give SIU too many big opportunities after that first drive that they put
And that's
together.
where I go back to the adjustments, right? Because you saw Nick Baker, I think, do some things that you haven't necessarily seen with his legs, some designed runs, some quarterback draws, and it just wasn't there in the second half. They shut it down, and, like Jake Cav was talking about, there was a play, I remember, like, there was pressure in his face, and he looks down to the rush. Like, if your quarterback's eyes aren't downfield, you're obviously doing something right, and that was a key going into this game. SIU had struggled to protect the quarterback in their losses, and, this is the questions that Nick Hill has to answer now, right? They've only scored 30 points in their 4 losses, and it happened here again today.
Kyle, do you think that we're starting to see the old form of NDSU football?
Well, we certainly did at times, right? I mean, especially, you could even go back to, I mentioned this on air, like that 4-minute drive, you got the backups in, and they were still move the ball. Like, that's what you saw from NDSU in the past. Even go back to the goal line, and the TK Marshall touchdown. He runs in untouched against, as Eric just mentioned, one of the best rush defenses in the country, and he just walks in. It was a concerted effort, especially early on. We're going to go bigger. We're going to try and run the ball in different ways, and they found a way to crack a defense that was one of the best in the country.
I think big picture, though, I mean, if you just look at the Missouri Valley all year, there's been a lot of Jekyll and Hyde outside. SDSU has been consistent, the one constant all year, maybe South Dakota to a lesser extent. Now NDSU, I think next week's a prove-it game for NDSU. They had a nice home win against a very good ranked opponent, Southern Illinois. Now you go on the road. I know Northern Iowa tripped up today, but a hard place to win. Another team that hasn't beaten NDSU for a while. Can you replicate this next week? I know they had the back-to-back wins, but that was against Western Illinois and Murray State. Now you're playing two quality teams in Southern Illinois, UNI, that were battling for the playoffs just as hard as NDSU was. Can you string two good wins together and put yourself where you're ascending into the playoffs as opposed to, all right, NDSU could lose next week and get in, but you'd rather be that 8-3, and maybe at that point you're looking at a potential seed.
Like you said, UNI lost today. They lost to Missouri State. So how did the Bison build off of this performance into the final game of the regular season?
Good question. Defensively, it starts with defense. It always has with this program. I mean, I know they've had draft picks and quarterbacks and all that, but defense is what won 9 national titles. The defense has got to show up again next week. Theo Day is a good quarterback, and if they can get Theo Day off schedule and he's not looking downfield but he's looking to scramble for his life, I think that's a big deal. Dylan Hendricks was really good today, too. Had a couple nice plays, nice sack. That's got to continue.
Yes.
And to your point I think it starts with stopping the run. You look at the 3 games they've lost, they don't stop the run. There's multi-dimension, there's play. I mean, you don't make a team one-dimensional. There's play-action stuff. UND, they struggle to stop the run. USD, they struggle to stop the run. SDSU, they struggle to stop the run. When the defense has played well this year, they found a way to limit the run game, and if they can do that next week, they're going to have a pretty decent shot.
And for the first time, we saw them string together stops. Right, it had been just too inconsistent. You get a stop in the first quarter, and then you don't force them to punt until maybe into the second half, and it just hadn't been consistent enough. And that talk about things they can carry over to next week. If you can do that against Theo Day and that offense, they've been Jekyll and Hyde too. You just never know what you're going to get from Northern Iowa. But I would assume, just from my personal experience, you're going to get everything you want from Northern Iowa. Their playoff lives are on the line. Yep. It's in their home state. That's going to be a phenomenal matchup. Looking forward to that one next week.
So the Bison are now 7-3, 4-3 in conference play. They go on the road for the final game of the regular season down at UNI. So for Jeff Kolpack, Eric Peterson, and Kyle Emanuel, I'm Logan Campbell. Thank you for watching the Bison postgame show presented by Gate City Bank.